I was looking at that. I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to get an apartment, maybe whatever. And he was devastated and crying and please, I'll do anything. And my oldest son was there, and he was sitting there talking to me as I was looking at apartments in our little like dining room, which was pitch dark. It was just the lighting of the laptop. And he walked in because he had left, and he walked back in, and he was like crying, please, I'll do anything. And in my mind I was like, you've said this before, we've tried everything, I just can't right now. I wasn't saying I wanted a divorce, I was just saying I need a break. And I remember Mitchell started crying, and Mitchell was like, Mom, please. He's like, Mike is Mike is
You said, who'll be my dad if Mike isn't here?
exactly. And then he said,
I'm coming home. You know 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 something wrong with me, my friend. Almost forgot who I am. It almost took me to end, but now I'm thinking of where. Gone in the wind, again giving temperaments. Man, I'm losing patience in this. Man, I couldn't patience to rent. Since it was all that I spent, what you spend this day is my friend. I pretend
Okay. Camera 1 and 2 are rolling.
Sound speed.
All right, thank you.
okay.
All right, go.
I'm Aubry Ramsey. I'm married.
Yeah. Mike Ramsey, she's married to me, 14 years.
Yes.
How did y'all meet?
We met, I was out with one of my best girlfriends, and we were out shooting pool. And she looked up and she knew him. And she was like, I know that guy over there. And I was not interested at the time. I was somewhat...
Yeah, don't buy that.
I was like, I'm out with my girlfriend, and she's like, he's such a nice guy, you should go meet him. And I was like, whatever, okay, let's go meet him. And so we started shooting pool, and he was just the nicest guy. And he wasn't a typical, like, one-liner, like... we talked about, actually the first thing we talked about was church. I was working at a church at the time. I was working at Fellowship of the Woodlands. And
my kids had been to
Fellowship of the Woodlands,
Yeah,
where I
yeah,
teach.
yeah.
And I taught at the pre-K. I was the one on stage with the mic doing the prayers and the little song and dance. And he's like, my kids call that the YMCA church.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. And I was like, that's where we go. And so we talked about our kids in church the whole time. And instantly I was like, God, this guy could be like my best friend. Like that, because I wasn't looking to date at that time. And I was like, this is such a cool guy. And we just talked all night long and shot pool. Yeah.
And then I pulled a quick one, and I called her the next morning. I was like, hey, let me pick you up for church.
Yeah. And I,
like
like
how
I
you
said,
say no.
Yes. And I remember thinking, I don't know that I want to date anybody right now, but God, church, she had to pull the church card. And I always say no to church. And he was like, and he said, and he knew that Susan and I were going to church together. And he goes, how about I meet you and Susan for church, and I take you both to lunch after? And I was like, oh, Andy's taking us both to lunch? I was like, okay. I can't say no to that. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was like, hook, line, and sinker. He knew what he was doing.
Were you thinking about that the whole time?
No, but I mean, there's a reason I'm punching above my weight.
Yeah.
Here.
He's
okay.
smart.
All right.
He's
so
smart.
It's not because I'm rich. All right.
Well, let me ask you. So both of you obviously had a church upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about your different upbringings and your
Okay.
family life within that.
Okay. You want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
No, totally grew up in a a church family. We went to church all the time and stuff. Active in youth group, that sort of thing. And it was kind of a quiet, sleepy town, so there wasn't that much to do. And that's how it was back in the 80s and 90s. There wasn't quite the variety of things to do that there is now.
What's the sleepy town?
Midland, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but my parents were never divorced. But they definitely had a rocky relationship. Yeah, definitely a rocky relationship.
So when you say rocky relationship, how, as growing up in that, I assume, what did that do with going to the church and seeing this play out in your home?
I just think that I thought my parents were just humans. It's like they're struggling through this like anybody else. Like, I didn't hold a grudge against my mom or my dad, even though they were, there wasn't a deal about taking sides. It was just, hey, they're, doing the best they can, so.
Right. And I grew up, my parents had divorced when I was very young. And then my mom remarried. And he's pretty much what I knew as my dad. I think I was around 5 when they got married, so I was very, very young. And we always went to church, and it was a little bit more formal. It was the formal church and the kneel in the stand and the kneel in the stand. And we had, we went to church groups. And when we moved to College Station is when we started getting a little bit more involved in the youth group. And that's when it kind of became fun. Other than that, it was just sitting in church, asking mom for a piece of gum and drawing, while they did their thing. And so, and then I do remember a little bit about Sunday school, but then it really started to get fun as we got a little bit older. And that was really about it. It was church, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say that my relationship with God was necessarily really strong at that point. I just knew church, and I knew what it was about, and I knew that you prayed, and we talked about it and stuff, but I didn't really have that connection quite yet until I was older.
So kind of similar question, the divorce and things like that, with looking at your environment, did that have any type of effect on you with your relationship of what people say the church is?
Yes.
And you actually, living a certain way, in a sense.
Yes. I mean, it definitely made me feel a little different, because right around that time, divorce wasn't as common as it maybe is now. So we definitely felt different, and especially in a church setting, I felt like I always was just like, this is my mom and my dad, because I didn't want to stand out. So that definitely, and I definitely, of course, although I think everybody thinks, you're going to have this fairy tale wedding and it's just going to be all these wonderful Disney movie kind of thing, and nothing, you're never going to fight and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, those were my dreams.
Were your parents strict on dating?
Yes, to some degree. My mom's nickname was June Cleaver. So that ought to tell you something. She was very, she worked full time, and both my parents did. And I can't say enough amazing things about my mom. She's just like this classy, intelligent, beautiful person. And she, raised us that way. And I very much always wanted to be a good kid. And so, for the most part, it was pretty strict. Like, they had to meet everybody. They had to come over. They, wanted to know a little bit of background about them. So I'd say I grew up pretty strict. Although I never was resentful about that. Like, I never was like, oh, my parents are so strict. I just knew that my parents had high expectations, and I was okay with it. So.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I look back on that now that
Yes.
I'm a mom,
Yeah.
maybe, but it didn't. I just felt like I was close enough to my mom. I had so much respect for her that I didn't disagree with her. I wanted to please her, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. How about you?
Oh, my parents were just glad if I got a date. So they weren't real picky about the whole thing.
That's hilarious.
Why do you say that?
No, well, I mean, I wasn't always the suave guy you see in front of you today.
Right.
So I've grown to myself a
I've
bit.
trained him to be this suave. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Well, it's different standards, really, for guys and girls. At least it was, I think, for the most part.
Right.
I mean, that's just the fact. So.
Yeah. So when it comes to your single life, and as you started today, right? how did you see the opposite sex? What was the thoughts that you have, at a young person, because we're going to move to the older,
Oh, okay.
So looking at, you're in high school and you're seeing a guy, and you're seeing a woman, a gal, and what is it, how did you visualize them? How did you think that intellectually that they came across to you? What were you taught, as well as what did you expect and what did you actually experience? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. For me, I really wanted a guy that appreciated and respected me for my mind. I have an older sister, but she's only a year and 8 months older than me. So, there's a little competition going on there. And she's beautiful. And growing up, I just was so jealous and just wanted to be just like her. And all the boys just loved her. And so there was always that, oh, I'm not as pretty as my sister, kind of is how I felt about myself. And then I have a twin brother. And so that was a cool little dynamic, because I'd be like, hey, I think such and such is cute. And he'd be like, I think such and such is cute. And I'm like, I'll invite them to spend the night, and you invite them to spend the night, and we'll stay up all night long and talk, right? So we kind of helped each other out on that. But I very much was really big on someone that I could laugh with, and someone that looked at me as a person and not just, I was really, it's weird because I've even told him this now as an adult. I look back on my childhood and I was really paranoid back then about, I don't want to say I was paranoid about sex, but I was paranoid that that's what I was going to get pushed into. And that was always on the forefront of my mind. Like if I went out to a party, I was always like, I don't want to be stuck alone with a guy, because I was always worried that that's all that he was going to want from me, or put myself in a situation, where that really worried me a lot. I always wanted to be friends first. And that was really important to me, to get to know each other. And that wasn't anything that my parents ever pushed on me, or my mom was like, be aware with boys. I mean, they were smart with us and communicated with us, but it's not anything they put on me. I think I put that on myself, which is kind of weird. But
did they talk to you about sex and stuff like that?
Yes, they did. I remember we had a book that we had to read.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got a book.
You had to read it?
Well, they read it. They sat down. My mom sat down with us each individually. But, of course, my sister was first. So I remember kind of hearing about it from her first. There's this book. It's kind of weird. It's kind of awkward. And so when the book came to us, it was like, here's the birds and the bees. It was, so we definitely learned about it. Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, I knew about this.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's funny.
That was our birds and bees talk.
So what about you? How did you see the opposite sex?
Well, I mean, it's funny because she's so, it's just funny that she mentions that, she was so worried that someone would be, looking at her as a sexual object. And I'm just thinking, yeah, as a guy, I can remember feeling the exact opposite. Like, I hope that a woman, wants me for sex, I mean, I was the exact opposite. But it's not,
It's the difference between a man and a woman.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 16-year-old guy, right? But I was not, I wasn't. I wasn't like I was active in that way by any stretch of the imagination.
He was just dreaming.
Yeah, but no, I think that's true, right? But I had total angst about it. Like, I think I had more angst about it because my parents never showed each other affection. Mm-hmm. And so I think I just had this, like, real angst and uneasiness about the whole, like, physical aspect. And, like, would a girl think I was, good looking or be attracted to me or whatever? I think there was a lot of angst with that with me. But definitely did have, friends that were girls and everything that was really, good situation. So,
Yeah, I had a lot of guy friends too, for sure. And I think that's because that was so important to me. It was like so important that I had guy friends first, and we based a friendship off of it before we based a relationship off of it. So, yeah, that was really important to me too. Mm-hmm. I think, for sure. But my parents were just the opposite. They were overly, like, not overly, that's a bad word, but they were very affectionate with each other. Like, it was very obvious that, especially my dad, he was always just, hugging on my mom and, always making sure that we showed her respect and, things like that. So.
I'm asking these questions because I'm really curious on the foundation and then what you personally, your own personal experience with the foundation, and then moving through as you grow and as an adult to how that matured. And then what's being passed on to your next generation. That's where those questions are going.
Right.
Coming from.
Yeah.
By the way, jump in anywhere you want to.
Yeah, because we both went through divorce and then found each other after. And that has been very eye-opening for both of us. In some ways, I feel like having gone through a divorce, for me at least, there's a part of me that it taught me you can do whatever you need to do on your own. You've done it before, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because then sometimes when things are hard, I have that mentality of, well, if I need to be on my own, I can be on my own.
Not that you'd want to be.
No, never. Couldn't bear to be without you. But because of that, sometimes that has been, I think that's been a negative thing, to look at, but then in the same sentence, I can also say that because I've been through divorce, I also know that and I tell my kids this all the time, it takes two to make a marriage work and it takes one to make it not. And so I feel like I can't be that one that makes it not work. I have to be a team player. I said I do, and I do. And another thing is to always try to remember, go back to the time that you remembered, why did you fall in love with this person? Because most of the time that answer, no matter who you ask, is going to be something about that person's character. It's not like, well, they were 6'2" and had blonde hair, and well, now they've shrunk and they're 6'1" and they dyed their hair brown. I'm out, So it's usually about their character, and sometimes we all take a little bit of the beaten path and we get off track a little bit, and maybe we aren't 100% ourselves, or maybe we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing, or we're just in a bad time in our life, and you know what I mean? And so our character is still there. It's just sometimes, we all go through hard times, and I think that's when the communication is really important, to come back and just be like, okay, these are the things that I'm missing and I'm hurting and I need from you, and the communication is key, because most of the time they're off kilter for a reason, and so are you. It's not just them. Most of the time it's both of you are kind of off, and then when you come back together and you talk to each other, it's like, okay, I didn't realize I was doing that, and then,
so in both of your first marriages, would you say that was the issue? Was it the communication, that you guys were off and you could not get that back together? Is that what you say it was?
Oh my gosh, I know for me.
But Mike is saying no.
My first marriage, the communication was almost non-existent. We were more friends than we were anything else, which I think is important, that you need to be more than just friends whenever you get married. We had a really good friendship. There's no denying that. And I definitely think we needed more, but our communication was horrible.
Yeah, but I think we just both got married. I think we both agreed that
we got married too young. We both got married too young.
Before we were each and that's one thing to tell our kids. It's like, you don't
even know who you are. I mean, I was 21.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
So it's like, you need to be a fully formed person. Like, know who you are, live a little bit on your own.
Yes, exactly.
And that's a thing we've heard a lot about, just knowing who you are.
Yes.
Who you are in Christ, who you are as a person, what your purpose is.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who I was in Christ at 21 at all. Like, as a matter of fact, I really gained that, like, where you feel it right here, with my relationship with God, after my first marriage and after my first son was born. And we actually had moved into a new home in the Woodlands, and we lived across the street from some people that had signs in their yard about, like, I think it was maybe Easter or something, to go to church. And I was like, well, what the heck, why not? And I was pregnant with my second, and I remember I went by myself. I don't remember the reason why, but I remember I went by myself, and I was like in the second row, and they were talking about the Trinity. And I remember I was just like, tell me more. I was like a sponge. I need more. Just give me more. And they like dove into the Bible, and it just like hit me like it had never hit me before. And I was just, I just wanted more. I yearned for more, and I just started going all the time. And yeah, so that's when it really sank into me, and that's when I really started to learn who I was. And then my husband at the time, you know, I think that's kind of when things started to kind of grow. We were just different, and we were growing into different people. You know, not that one of us was right or the other one was wrong or whatever. We were just different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What about for you, Mike? What would you say was, because you said no to communication, what in your first marriage, what do you think?
Well,
was the
yeah, no,
issue?
I think, I mean, it's funny because I was in the service, and so a lot of people get married young when you're in the service. Maybe you have like the high school sweetheart, and you go away, and you know you kind of have that long distance relationship, and so that was kind of our situation. So we had this. So anyway, it was just one of those deals, and I think we both got married too young, and I think we both just changed a lot. I mean, because we're all friends. So
yes. Yeah, his ex-wife and I, we go to dinner and together, and
yeah,
it's kind of like, you know, it takes a village. You know, we get together and we're like, okay, let's talk about the kids. Yeah, let's talk about what does everybody need.
yeah. So we try to work together with all that. But yeah, so I think that would be the main thing that I would have to give, like, to take away from that arrangement, was that just, you know, I don't think we were really, you know, fully formed people at that point.
Absolutely. I know I wasn't. I look back at who I was at that day. I just didn't even know who I was. I wasn't confident in who I was. I was more of a people pleaser.
That's a big thing, I think. It's not having, like, when people don't have a lot of self-confidence in who they are.
Yes.
Like, if you're afraid to be alone, that's a really bad reason to be in a relationship.
Yes. Well, you're also looking to the other person to make you all the things that you feel like you're
Exactly,
not.
to fill all your gaps. And
Yeah, and that's not anyone's responsibility, nor should you
Yeah.
put that burden on their shoulders. You know, it's between you and God on your happiness, and then that person should just accentuate your life. You know, and that is where I feel like so many relationships go wrong, is people are looking for this fairy tale and they're expecting the other person to give them that fairy tale, and that's just not reality. You know, the fairy tale needs to be within your own heart, you and God, and then this person just comes as, like, you know, the accent piece, right?
So when you two met each other, do you feel like you were more there? You were more like
Oh, yeah.
solid in who you were
Oh, yeah.
as a person, more confident?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very much so. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
And now it's funny because we always say that the other one is so spunky. You know, we're like, he's always like, you need to bring the spunk level down. And I'm like, well, you need to bring the spunk level down and quit poking the bear, you know? And seriously, that's just what it is. But I think it's because we are both very confident in who we are. And we both have big personalities. So sometimes it can be like 2 cans of gasoline, pouring it on a fire, you know? But also respecting that in each other as well is where I think it really makes it work.
So once you met, how long did you date before you became engaged?
Gosh, like 8 months?
no, it was more like a year.
Yeah, I guess we got engaged is what I'm thinking. Well, it was actually a year. Maybe
Yeah,
a
it's
year
about
and
a
a month
year.
or two.
Yeah.
And then we were engaged for a little while. And it's funny, because we were talking about this the other night. We were watching a movie, and they were talking about a wedding and these big weddings and whatever. And we both had that, our first marriage, you know, these big, beautiful weddings. And they were beautiful. And then our wedding was, it was beautiful, but we got married during Hurricane Ike. We lived in the Woodlands at the time, and so we called it the Mike and Ike wedding. And we basically packed up our car, took the kids. His kids still lived in Midland at the time, and Katie, his ex-wife, packed up her kids and met us, got their clothes all ready, met us, and then I got mine, and we went to Boerne, Texas, which was kind of like middle ground, I guess, and we got this little bed and breakfast, and we brought the dog, had the dog tied to the tree while we got married, and I just bought this little dress from like the mall at the time.
Macy's or something.
Macy's.
It was like what?
It was
10
like-
people there.
Yeah,
12 people there.
there was like my parents, his dad,
Yeah.
one of his sisters,
Yeah. Dane and West.
Dane and West, my best friend. She took our picture. We have one wedding picture.
Yeah.
Really cute. We're in a tree. The kids are like in a tree, and we're like standing next to the tree. And it's, you know, this. And I love the picture. And I'm a photographer. Like, from a photographer standpoint, I'm like, whoo. But I love that picture. And So yeah, our wedding was just so little, but it's like it felt right. Like you just knew, you went into it going, just knowing what you want, knowing who you are. It's like it was A and Z. You know, going into my first wedding, I was so worried about the dress and the party and the balloons and the this and.
Honey, I saved you from all that on
Thank
the
you,
second
honey.
time around.
You're the best. I just can't. I have no words.
I have a question. I have a question. So it's kind of a deep question. So you both have divorce in your background.
Yes.
And you have children.
Yes.
And you know, they have friends that probably look up to you and stuff like that and talk. They see this example right now. But they also know that there's divorce that's been there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and other people that you might come across, what is it that you might convey to a single person, 30 plus, younger, doesn't matter, that it didn't work out? Or I have met family members that have been through divorce. What is it about your relationship that speaks to your relationship with God, as well as just a relationship in general, that has changed now, that gives them hope and something that is different from what their experience that they had before? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. You want to go first?
Okay.
Go for it. You can do it.
Okay. So I would say, well, you know, in my experience, you know, I made a lot of mistakes my first time around. And, you know, I was a bad husband. Okay? I mean, no doubt about it. Let's be honest.
He wasn't the best.
Yeah. But, and I felt a lot of guilt. In fact, you know, I still do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, she'll tell you.
He carries it with him
Yeah.
still. Yeah.
Just that my kids went through a divorce.
Mm.
So, here's my napkin.
Yeah. It's okay.
So,
I think we both carry that. It's not
Yeah, we
something
do.
you want
yeah, we do.
for your kids.
But I will say that God restored me.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, my kids, and you know, I love my kids. I've always loved my kids, and I've always been the best dad that I can be. Not a perfect dad, but
He's a great dad.
yeah.
He's hard on himself about it, but he's a great
Yeah.
dad.
But anyway, so we got divorced, and I had two little boys, you know, one that was like less than 2 and one that was 4. And, you know, they moved away. And I basically sent them away. I said, look, you just go back home to your mom. You go with your mom and dad so they can help you take care of the kids. But I can't do this with you anymore. Okay.
I think his guilt led him on that.
Yeah. But, you know, I just didn't love this person. And I was not where I should be as, you know, as a person either. You know, I'm not gonna put it up and just say that, oh, it didn't work out or whatever. I mean, I screwed it up. Like, you know, I was not a good person. And I think that if I had gotten married older, you know what I mean, when I was in a better situation, I wouldn't have had to be in that situation. But nonetheless, you know, so it was a bad deal. But I would say that, you know, God restored everything back to me. So my kids were far away, and I worked really hard to keep a relationship with them. But at the end of the day, I was always begging my ex-wife, hey, can we find a place in the middle to meet, you know, somewhere where I can work and you can work, and we can make this work out and everything. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I have my kids ended up living in the same town as me, right down the street. So I saw them almost every day, and I got to be a part of their life. And
Yeah, she ended up moving here
yeah,
shortly after we did, which was
Yeah.
very much a God thing.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you know, I have a lovely wife, and we have a good relationship, and you know, and her kids are like my kids, and so all those things I lost, God restored to me, even though I don't deserve it, but he did. So.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to look back, like bird's eye view, kind of pull yourself back a little bit and look at where we are now and what we've had to go through. And not only do you go, wow, God is always in control. God knows exactly what he was doing. There are no mistakes. I mean, we've screwed up. We're not perfect. Nobody is. But I look back on that now and I think where we are now is exactly where we're supposed to be. And we will give that all to God, because I truly believe, and I think he does too, that, we went through our first marriages for a reason. God needed those children with that DNA to be on this earth, and he needed this village of people to raise them. And I feel like I look back on my first marriage and I wasn't perfect either. There was infidelity in my first marriage on his side, and I don't sit there and point the finger and say, well, he, I wasn't giving him everything that he needed, and I was very much just focused on the kids, and there was a lack of respect there, and so I just kind of became my own person. I was like, well, I'll just be the mom and to these kids, and we'll just kind of like be roommates, Well, that doesn't work in a marriage, and so I have, things that I know that I wasn't perfect at, that I could have done better. But I also look back and just think, but this is where it has led me, and I very much feel like, for example, when we lived in the Woodlands, we unexpectedly became pregnant, Mike and I. And
mainly you.
Anyway, when I was in my 6th month, we lost the baby. It was another boy, and we had named him. His name was going to be Vaughn, and I was actually in Bryan College Station because that's where I grew up, and my mom ran an OB-GYN clinic at the time, and so that's where I went for all my appointments. And I had gone in, and there was no heartbeat, and so they sent me to the ER to induce labor, and he drove in and had written this letter to Vaughn, and after he was born, we got to view him, and Mike read this letter to him, which was, I'm already hormonal anyway. It was just, that was like the hardest day of my life. But in that, it was, God brought you into this, world and took you out for a reason. And we're going to respect your life. And he said, because at the time we were like, we're moving to Austin, or we're moving somewhere, because his kids at the time were in Midland.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband was in Austin, and so my kids were constantly traveling back and forth. He was constantly traveling back and forth, and he's like, we have got to make this easier on all of us and these kids.
And then we found out we were pregnant with Vaughn. That's when we said, you know what, we're doing it.
We're doing it. He's like, we got to move closer to Midland. He's like, and at the time my twin brother was living in Austin, and his dad lives like an hour from here. And so
I basically quit my job and started a business.
Yeah.
To come here.
And so we just up and moved. Well, we hadn't moved yet, and we just lost this baby.
But if we hadn't had Vaughn, who knows if we would have ever done that.
And if we hadn't, his kids wouldn't have been here. So we went ahead and said, God, this was God's plan. And we always said it was because of Vaughn that we made that move. And so now that Vaughn was gone, we felt like we had to honor him, that God put him in our life for this reason, and this was why, and we can't back out now because it's not working out the way that we thought. So we moved, and because of that, my kids had their dad down the street. Mm-hmm. And shortly after, Katie was like, his ex-wife was like, you know what, maybe I will. I like this area, maybe I'll move. And her parents were talking about maybe moving here too, and they did. And so they moved here, and his ex-wife moved here, his kids moved here. We had everybody together. Yeah. It was literally amazing. Mm-hmm. And they lived down the street, and we were just like, okay, God could not have orchestrated that any more beautifully. And that is what brought us here, and that is how we all kind of became together, like this little village, Yeah.
So how do you see your example playing out in your babies right now?
Wow.
Oh, I hope it's a good one.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. I can take you to a moment. This is what, when you ask me that question, this is the moment I think of. So I don't really have an answer. I just have a moment. So Mike and I, just like every other human on this planet, our marriage is not perfect. It's, we go through bumps in the road, and we were having a moment. It's hard. It's hard to be a blended family. It's hard enough to.
Yeah, it is hard.
It's hard enough to have your own blood and be a family and to raise your children, but to have a blended family is even harder. And you've got exes in the picture, and you're all trying to get along, but your exes for a reason, and so there's a lot of dynamics. And it's difficult and it's hard, and the communication isn't always there, And so we were in a moment of struggling, and
Aubrey had some things to work on.
Because he apparently had been trained to perfection and not me.
Yeah, right.
So we were struggling a little bit, and in the moment, I'm kind of an open book. I'm hard. I don't do really well hiding my feelings, and so my kids knew what was going on. And my oldest son, Mitchell, at the time was in high school, and we were struggling a little bit with some of the kids in school, and there was a lot of arguing going on in the house, a lot of negativity, and some of the other kids were feeling it and coming to me and complaining about it, and Mama Heart,
Yeah.
And
so she thought that the drama between, with my kids and the struggles going on there was, basically just bringing the vibe down for everybody, which it was.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was just a very negative.
Yeah. And looking back, it's not that my kids were so bad. It's just
no, they were just going through typical kid stuff.
Yeah. Just normal stuff. It's just I was letting it,
Yes, and we
bleed into the rest of everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were both co-parenting, but parenting a little different at the same time, because we do parent differently. And so I basically was like, that's it. I'm drawing the line. This something has to give, something has to change. And I'm the type that I'm like cool until I'm not. And then when I'm not, I need a break. I need to either walk away or something. And that's where I was like, I need a break. We need, I don't know if I need a week away or something. And so I was looking at that. I was like, you know what, maybe I need to get an apartment, maybe whatever. And he was devastated and crying and please, I'll do anything. And my oldest son was there, and he was sitting there talking to me as I was looking at apartments in our little dining room, which was pitch dark. It was just the lighting of the laptop. And he walked in because he had left, and he walked back in, and he was crying, please, I'll do anything. And in my mind, I was like, you've said this before, we've tried everything, I just can't right now. I wasn't saying I wanted a divorce, I was just saying I need a break. And I remember Mitchell started crying, and Mitchell was like, Mom, please. He's like, Mike is.
You said, who'll be my dad if Mike isn't here?
Exactly. Oh. And then he said, Mike's been my dad. Mike's been, and I don't mean to say that. I don't want to be hurtful to his dad, but he has been. And he said, who's going to be my dad if he's not here? And I immediately thought to myself, 15 years from there, I immediately pushed myself 15 years into the future, and I thought, what if one day he's in a marriage and they're struggling, and he comes to me and says, I'm done, I'm out of here, and I say, no, you need to sit down and work it out. And he says, well, you didn't. That's all I could think about is, and I had already been through divorce, and I was like, what is he going to think of marriage if this is round 2? And I'm like, peace out, y'all. I was like, I can't do this. This is not the example that I need to lead for my son. And so Mitchell, whether God was using him as the tool to talk to me or not, but Mitchell is literally the one that it hit me like a boulder upside the head. And I was like, I just didn't say anything. I just stopped and sat there and just stared, and my eyes welled up. And I just didn't say anything. And I didn't for like a day or two. But I knew that was like, okay, we're going to get counseling. We're going to make this work. I can be a little stubborn sometimes, so I didn't want to admit it right then and there. But yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. But so that was a big moment. So the kids, I feel like, not only have we tried to show them the example, but it's amazing how sometimes you have these children that you're raising and you're trying to input all these qualities into, and then sometimes they can turn around and just slap you upside the head and be the adult, and you're like, what? Wow, okay, yeah, thank you for that.
So I will say, knowing your son,
Yes,
he is that example.
yeah,
He is a very good example.
I think he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think he's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And he is a very godly man, and I am so grateful for that. And we try to talk about that a lot in our family, and we always would say, did you have a God moment today? And say our prayers, and always including God in everyday talk, not just when we eat and pray or when we go to church. I'm very, he always laughs at me because I'm like, oh my gosh, and he goes, you had a God moment? Tell me about your God moment. He does. He so mocks me. I'm like, stop. And he's like, no, seriously, tell me about your God moment. Because I have them all the time. Like multiple times a week. And so I'm very open with my kids. And so I'm always talking about my God moments. But I want to instill in them to look for God every day. Look for him in your life every day. Don't just look for him when you're in church or when you're in trouble or when you're sick, or when your marriage isn't working.
Yeah, that's something I've been trying to work on too. Is I do tease her about that just because she's so like emotionally driven.
I am so.
But like Aubrey's never seen a sunset she didn't fall in love with.
Yes.
That's how she is, right?
Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, but she has a point there. I mean, it's like, hey, if we believe in this creator that's in the world, I mean, look for his signs. So I'm with you on it. Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be by your side all the time, and I want to be reminded of that all the time. I want to see that because that's what gives me comfort and peace. He's very this boy knows the Bible in and out. And, like, he's so intellectual and so smart and remembers all this. And I'm like, I don't know where in the Bible this is, but I know I've heard the story about, and I'll like reiterate the story, and half of it I don't have right, or but I got the general purpose of it, And he's like, oh, you mean his name wasn't Paul? His name was Luke. And I'm like, whatever, he was a guy, and he was poor, and he, and the guy came in, and he's like, just shaking his head. I'm like, but you get the point, right? So we come at it from very different points of view, you know what I mean? But I'm all about being very open with the kids, and I hope that's paid off. I think it has.
So I have one more question.
Okay.
Okay.
Before you start, we got 15 minutes left on recording.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Perfect.
So I would like to ask you to instill some advice to any singles out there, especially the 30 plus ones, and you can touch on the younger ones as well. From a male standpoint, talking to another man.
Okay.
And then from a woman's standpoint, talking to another woman.
Okay.
Go for it.
So you want to go first now?
No, you go first.
Okay. I would say, look, okay, especially at that age, right?
There's a fly behind you. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. It's
Okay.
like buzzing around your head.
No
so
problem.
here it goes. Okay. No, go. Yeah.
Good thing we're not in our house because we have a lot more than you do.
Yeah, our puppies.
So, okay, you're 30, all right? You're not going to change anybody at this point in your life, right? And so, if you're looking at someone as a potential mate, don't think that there's something about them that you're gonna fix, or they'll change. You need to make sure this is someone that you love for who they are at that moment. And by the same token, don't go looking for someone somewhere that don't go fishing for catfish if what you want is a bass. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at the end of the day, right? So, who are you hanging around? What's your friend group like? Okay? If you think you want these qualities in a woman, well, are those the type of people you're around? Are you that type of person? So I think those would be some of the questions that I would ask someone to ask.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of fish am I?
Yeah. You're your own fish, honey. You're
Thanks.
special.
Good answer.
Yeah, good answer.
She's a beta. Like, I gotta keep her in her own bowl, or else she will tear it up. Right?
That's pretty funny. So I like what you said. By the way, good job.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I definitely think yes to everything that he said, because I do like that. But I think from a woman's standpoint, you got to be comfortable in your own skin. That's, I think, the most important thing. Because if you don't know what you want, then you don't know what you want in a partner either, right? So that's super important. I feel like know who you are and be comfortable knowing who you are. Don't apologize for it. So many times you go into it and you see this person who's maybe outside is so perfect, and you think, well, whatever they want, I'll be, because, I just need to have them in my life. Or, well, maybe what they think, I don't really agree with what they're saying, but maybe it's not that bad. Don't compromise yourself for someone else. And I think there should be a common ease to it at first, especially, when you first meet someone. There should be this like common ease, like they're fun to be around. And like me personally, I know everyone has different things that are important to them, but for me, it's laughter. Like, I need someone who's going to make me laugh, and I tell him all the time, that's your saving grace. Days I want to kill you, you better make me laugh, but so for me, be someone who can bring that out in you, because if you don't have fun and laughter, I think it's hard to get through some of the hard times as well. There's so many things in a relationship that I think, you need. You need passion, you need laughter, you need communication. There's so many things to a relationship. You can't just have the sex appeal and not have the friendship, and right. So it definitely needs to be well balanced. So time, I think, is of the essence, because you need to get to know someone, and you need to know, do we have that? Are we sexually attracted to each other? Can we be friends? Can I trust you with my feelings? Can we communicate? And faith, for me, is very important. And I feel like, is it important to you that we base our marriage off of faith? Because I feel like when you have that common ground that you always go back to whenever things are wrong or struggling, that's where you kind of, because you're off kilter, right? When you're not getting along. Well, when you come back to God, it puts you back on the same common ground. And then I feel like, so it kind of throws you, what was off kilter, back together. So I think if you continue to know that you have that same foundation to go back onto, don't cut off anything on your checklist to try to please somebody else, and just know who you are. And don't apologize for it. Unless you're a really mean person. Then maybe you should work on yourself. No, I'm just kidding.
Is there anything else you would like to pass on before we wrap?
Good. Thank you.
I say pray together.
Yeah.
There is so much power in that. We were married for years before we actually prayed together. We would hold hands at church and bow our heads together, but that's not the same. But to be together in a room, holding hands and just praying together is literally, I think, the most powerful thing you can have in a marriage. Like, it almost makes me want to cry just thinking about it. It's so powerful. And if you're not doing that in a marriage, you're missing out. Like,
what is prayer to you? Why is it the conduit? Why is it? Real quick.
To me, I feel like it puts you on a common ground. It puts you on a common ground. You're both coming vulnerable. You're both saying we're imperfect. It's just like that Casting Crowns song together, Broken Together. And it's saying all the time, this may not be the fairy tale you wanted, but can't we just go to the altar broken together? And that's where I feel like it is. Here we are, two broken people holding hands, saying we're broken together, and let's go to God asking for help. And I think when you do that, it just immediately puts you on the same ground. And it's just powerful. It's beautiful. Yeah. And it reminds you that you're not in charge. Because when you're married and you're mad, you're like, he's so wrong, he's so this, just so mad at him, and they're thinking the same thing. Well, then I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. And when you're fighting, you're just doing the fear dance of what you're scared of, right? And so, well, who's going to take away that fear? That's God. You go there together, and it's just saying, okay, I'm not right, you're not right, neither one of us are right, we're both wrong. Let's go to God, for this. And that's why I think it's so powerful.
So I'd say, is Christ your Savior? Is He your Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Or is He, so that's making Him the Lord of that part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Cut.
All right.
Thank y'all.